So we're going to start with the next topic in Computer Security Plus, compare and contrast the security control in different framework types. First of all, what is a cybersecurity framework? So if you talk about a cybersecurity framework, so it gives a common language, a common platform, and it defines a set of standard for your security leaders across different countries and industry to understand the security postures and those of their vendors. With the framework, what happens that it gives with the framework in place, whenever you're talking about a framework and it is in place, so it becomes much easier to define the processes and the procedures which your organization must take to assess, must use to monitor and to mitigate your cybersecurity risk. Now we are going to look at the different cybersecurity framework or the common cybersecurity frameworks. There are 7 common cybersecurity frameworks all around the globe: NIST Cybersecurity Framework, ISO 27001 and ISO 27002, SOC2, NERC-CIP, HIPAA, GDPR and FISMA. So these are 7 common cybersecurity frameworks across the globe. We are going to have a look onto this. First of all, NIST Cybersecurity Framework. NIST Cybersecurity Framework was it was established in the response from to the executive order by former President of US and President Obama to improve the critical infrastructure cybersecurity. Now, when it was the NIST, it was it called for the more and more collaboration between the public and private sector, so that they can identify, they can assess, and they can manage the cyber risk. That was the main reason this NIST cybersecurity framework was created, to create a more collaboration between the public and the private private organizations to mitigate to manage the cybersecurity or cyber risk, we can say. Now, the compliance is voluntary, but NIST is the global. It's the standard. It has become we can say the global standard for assessing any kind of cybersecurity maturity, any security gap, to identify any kind of security gaps, or any kind of to find out any cybersecurity regulations. NIST is one of the top framework globally. Then we have ISO 27001 and ISO 27002. Now, it was created by ISO, International Organization for Standard, and these are 2 different certifications, 27001 and 27002. They are considered as the international standard for a validation of any cybersecurity program, and mainly for the third party. Now, with the help of ISO certification, as you know, the different vendors, different companies, they can show the ability, they can tell to the boards, to their stakeholders, to customers that our organization is compatible or is in compliance with the cybersecurity risk. And with this ISO certification, the companies can easily tell to their stakeholders, like it's an indicator basically that we have got the mature cybersecurity practices and everything controls in the places. But if you talk about the downside of this particular process, it needs more time and resources, and it is recommended that organizations should only continue with the ISO 27001 and 27002 if there is a really benefit for them. For example, if they are going to achieve a new business, they want to bid for a new business and they want to get that business. For that, suppose these certifications are required. So it's basically the certifications is also, we can say, it's a point in time exercise, and it could miss the evolving risk which might monitor the continuous monitoring can detect basically. So that is one downside we can talk about the ISO 27001 and 27002. Then we have got SOC2, that is Service Organization Control Type 2. It's basically it's a trust-based cybersecurity framework, and for the auditing standard developed, which is created by American Institute of Certified Public Accounts (AICPA) to make sure to verify the vendors and the partners are securely managing the client data. Uh, it SOC, if you talk about SOC2, it gives you more than 60 compliance requirement, and it talks about different auditing processes for third party system and the controls, and the audit could go for a year to complete, and at that time the report will be issued, which will be attached to the vendor cybersecurity postures, but it's very tough. I mean, because of its a comprehensiveness, the SOC2 is one of the toughest framework to implement for any organization which is basically in the banking or the finance sector, and they need a higher standard of compliance than the compared when we compare with the other sector. It's a very tough framework to implement, and it's very important framework also that should be central to any third party risk management program. Then we have NERC-CIP. So it was introduced to mitigate the rise in US attack on US critical infrastructure and growing third party. So NERC-CIP, that is a North American Electric Reliability Corporation, critical infrastructure protection. So it's a set of cybersecurity standard which gives you to utilize and power sector reduce to reduce your cyber risk and make sure to reliability of the bulk electric systems. So this framework is basically it's mainly to identify and mitigate the cyber risk in their supply chain. So NERC and SIP, it gives you a range of controls which includes the categorization of the system, categorization of the critical assets, training the resources, training the personals, incident response, the planning, the recovery plans for critical cyber assets, and the vulnerability assessment, and many more here. So after that, we have got HIPAA, that is HIPAA. So Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, that is HIPAA. It's a cybersecurity framework that needs your all healthcare organization to implement this particular framework to make sure that everything is secure and protected. Now, per HIPAA, in addition for whenever talking about HIPAA, so in addition to demonstrate compliance against the cyber best practice, such as you are going to give the training to your employees, the companies in this particular sector, they are also going to conduct risk assessment to make sure to manage and identify the risk which are emerging. It's a main, all your healthcare organization, they always go for HIPAA. It's a HIPAA compliance is it's a standard framework and widely accepted. Then we got GDPR, that is General Data Protection Regulation, and it was adopted in 2016 for citizen of the European Union. And the GDPR basically it impacts all organizations that are established in the European Union or any business that collects and gets the private data of European Union citizen, EU citizen, including your US businesses as well. And this particular framework, GDPR framework, has got approximately 99 articles, which pertain to a company's compliance responsibility, which includes the consumers' data access rights, which has the data protection policies and the procedures, the data breach, the breach of data notification requirements, and for example, the companies must notify their national regulator within 72 hours of breach discovery, kind of these things. Then fines are very high in GDPR. Approximately 20 million euro or 4% of total global revenue, and it's a very tough GDPR, and its implementation is also very strict. FISMA or FISMA, so Federal Information Security Management Act. It's a comprehensive cybersecurity framework that protects your federal government information and system against cyber threat. FISMA also extends to third parties and vendors who work on behalf of your federal agencies. Now, FISMA framework is aligned closely with your NIST standard, and it requires your agencies and third parties to maintain the inventory of whatever the digital assets they are having, and they have to identify any kind of integration between the network and the system. So all the sensitive information has to be categorized according to the risk and the security control, and they should meet the minimum security standard at whatever has been defined in NIST 800 guidelines and FIPS guidelines. So all the organizations who have been impacted, they should conduct a cybersecurity risk assessment, the annual security reviews, and they have to continuously monitor their IT infrastructure. So when you talk about cybersecurity framework, so it could be a vital guidepost. Cybersecurity framework gives a useful and mandated foundation for integrating your cybersecurity risk management into your security performance management and also third-party risk management strategy. So if you're using a framework as a guidepost, we will get more and more important insight into where the highest security risk is there, and we can feel very confident to communicate to the our organization people, rest of organization, that what we are committed for security excellence. So these are the basic 7 or the most common security frameworks we are having. Thank you.